I stood on the front porch of my new house, the keys still warm in my palm. 3 bedrooms, a backyard with enough space for a garden and a garage where I could finally set up my workshop. Every square foot of this place belonged to me. I earned it with sweat, tears, and countless overtime hours. Then I saw her car pulling up. My mother stepped out first. Behind her came my brother. And then, to my absolute disbelief, my ex-wife Amanda climbed out of the back seat. 2 years ago, these 3 people threw me away like I was nothing. Now, here they stood, smiling like nothing ever happened. But the door that once opened for them was locked forever. Before I share what happened next, I want to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below, and if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, completely hit that like button right now. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss any of my stories. Now let me take you back to where this all began. Trust me, you will not believe what my own blood did to me. My name is Buster, and I grew up in a small town about 40 miles outside of Columbus, Ohio. The kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and secrets do not stay secret for long. My father worked at a manufacturing plant for 22 years before a forklift accident took him from us. I was 15 years old when we buried him. That day changed everything. My mother, Linda, was 58 years old and had never worked a day outside the home. My father had always provided for us. When he died, she was lost. But instead of stepping up and figuring things out, she leaned entirely on me and my older brother, Derek. Well, let me correct that. She leaned on me. Derek was 4 years older, 36 now, and he had always been her favorite. Growing up, I watched him get everything handed to him while I worked for every single thing I had. He dropped out of college after 1 semester, bounced between dead-end jobs, and eventually stopped trying altogether. But in my mother's eyes, Derek could do no wrong. He was her golden child, and I was just the backup. By the time I turned 16, I was working part-time at a grocery store to help pay bills. I mowed lawns on weekends. I did whatever it took to keep food on the table while Derek sat on the couch playing video games. My mother never once told him to get a job, but she had no problem reminding me that the electric bill was due or that we needed groceries. I became the provider of that household before I even graduated high school. After graduation, I got a job as a technician repairing industrial equipment. It was hard work, long hours, and not exactly glamorous, but it paid well and I was good at it. Over the years, I worked my way up, got certified, and started making decent money. I saved as much as I could, dreaming of one day buying my own place. But every time I built up my savings, someone in my family needed something. Derek needed money for a business idea that never went anywhere. My mother needed help with medical bills. The roof needed fixing. There was always something. I told myself that family comes first. That is what my father would have wanted. So I kept giving and giving, believing that one day they would appreciate everything I sacrificed for them. Then I met Amanda. It was at a company party, one of those awkward gatherings where everyone stands around making small talk. She was there with a friend who worked in our accounting department. Amanda was 29 with dark hair and a smile that made my heart skip. She walked up to me and started a conversation like we had known each other for years. Nobody had ever shown that kind of interest in me before. I was the quiet guy, the one who worked too much and never had time for dating. But Amanda made me feel seen. She made me feel like I mattered. We dated for about a year before I proposed. Looking back, there were signs I should have noticed. She complained a lot about our apartment being too small. She compared me to her friends' husbands, who had bigger houses and nicer cars. She would make little comments about how I was always tired from work, how I never wanted to go out, how I was not spontaneous enough. But I ignored all of it, because I loved her. I thought marriage would make things better. I emptied my savings account to give her the wedding she wanted. 300 guests, a fancy venue, a dress that cost more than my first car. I told myself it was worth it to make her happy. We moved into a slightly bigger apartment, and I picked up extra shifts to cover the rent. Amanda worked as an office assistant at a marketing firm, but her salary barely covered her personal expenses. I paid for everything else. My mother and Derek did not like Amanda. They said she was too demanding, too materialistic. But that was ironic coming from people who had drained my bank account for years. Still, they came around often enough, usually when they needed something. Amanda would roll her eyes every time Derek showed up asking for a loan. At least we agreed on that. 2 years into our marriage, I started noticing things. Amanda would be on her phone constantly, smiling at messages she never showed me. She started working late more often. She bought new clothes and perfume that I never saw her wear around me. I wanted to believe it was nothing. I wanted to trust her. But something in my gut told me the truth before my eyes ever did. One Tuesday afternoon, I came home early from work. I had been fighting a fever all day, and my supervisor finally told me to go home and rest. I pulled into the parking lot and saw an unfamiliar car in my usual spot. A silver sedan with a personalized license plate. I did not think much of it at first. Maybe a neighbor had a visitor. But when I walked up to our apartment, I heard laughter coming from inside. A man's voice. And Amanda's giggle, that same giggle she used to save just for me. I unlocked the door quietly. My hands were shaking. I walked down the hallway toward our bedroom, and the door was slightly open. I pushed it the rest of the way, and saw them. Amanda and some guy I had never seen before, tangled up in the sheets I had paid for in the bed I had assembled with my own hands. They both froze when they saw me. I expected Amanda to cry, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. Instead, she looked at me with this cold expression, like I was the one who had done something wrong. She said, and I will never forget these words, "You were never enough for me, Buster. You work all day and come home exhausted. What did you expect me to do?" The man's name was Brad. He was some kind of senior manager at her company. Expensive suit, expensive watch, the kind of guy who probably never worked a hard day in his life. He did not even have the decency to look embarrassed. He just stared at me like I was an inconvenience. I walked out of that apartment without saying a word. I drove around for hours, not knowing where to go. My whole world had just collapsed, and I had no one to turn to. So I did what I had always done when I needed help. I went to my mother. I showed up at my mother's house around 9 that night. My eyes were red. My hands were still trembling. I sat down at her kitchen table and told her everything. The affair, Brad. The things Amanda said to me. I expected my mother to hold me, to tell me everything would be okay, to be on my side for once in my life. Instead, she looked at me and said, "Maybe if you paid more attention to your wife instead of working all the time, this would not have happened." I could not believe what I was hearing. My own mother was blaming me for my wife's affair. She went on to say that Amanda was a smart woman who knew what she deserved. That maybe I needed to look in the mirror and ask myself why I could not keep her happy. Derek was there too, lounging on the couch like always. He started laughing when he heard the story. He said he always knew I could not keep a woman like Amanda, that I was too boring, too predictable. Then he dropped a bomb that nearly destroyed me. He told me he had seen Amanda with Brad multiple times over the past few months, at restaurants, at the mall, getting into his car. But he never said anything because, in his words, it was not his business. My own brother watched my wife cheat on me and did nothing. My own mother blamed me for being betrayed. I sat there in silence, realizing a truth that had been staring me in the face for 30 years. These people did not love me. They never had. I was useful to them. I was their source of money, their safety net, their backup plan. But I was never their family. Not really. I left that house without another word. I did not cry. I did not yell. I just felt empty. Amanda filed for divorce before I even had a chance to process what happened. She hired an expensive lawyer, probably paid for by Brad, and came after everything I had. She wanted half of my savings, half of my retirement, even half of the value of the furniture I had bought with my own money. Her lawyer painted me as a neglectful husband who drove his wife into the arms of another man. I thought my family would at least testify on my behalf. I was wrong. My mother refused to get involved. She said she did not want to take sides. Derek actually spoke to Amanda's lawyer and told him that I often neglected my wife and worked too much to be a good husband. My own brother sabotaged my divorce case. The judge ruled in Amanda's favor. I lost nearly 60% of my savings. I lost the apartment because both our names were on the lease, and I could not afford it alone after paying her settlement. I was left with almost nothing. 32 years old, divorced, broke, and completely alone. I found a tiny studio apartment on the rough side of town. The kind of place with thin walls and neighbors who yelled at all hours. I worked double shifts just to pay rent and rebuild what little savings I could. I stopped talking to my mother and Derek entirely. They tried calling a few times, probably to ask for money, but I never answered. Those first 6 months were the darkest period of my life. I would come home from work, sit in that empty apartment, and stare at the walls. I questioned everything. What did I do to deserve this? Why did everyone I trusted betray me? Was there something fundamentally wrong with me? Some nights I thought about giving up entirely, not in any dramatic way. I just stopped caring whether I woke up the next morning. The only thing that kept me going was spite. Pure, stubborn spite. I refused to let them win. I refused to let Amanda and Brad ride off into the sunset while I rotted away in some forgotten corner. I refused to prove my mother and Derek right about me being a failure. One night, about 8 months after the divorce, I was sitting alone in my apartment, eating cold pizza. I caught my reflection in the window and barely recognized myself. I had lost weight. My eyes looked hollow. I was becoming a ghost of the person I used to be. That was my turning point. I made a decision right then and there. I said it out loud to myself. From now on, I live for myself. The next morning I woke up with a purpose I had not felt in years. I made a list of everything I wanted to accomplish. First on that list, get better at my job. I enrolled in a certification program that would qualify me for senior technician positions. I studied every night after work, sometimes until 2 or 3 in the morning. I passed the exam on my first try.